Now, you've probably heard a lot of people in our party tell you that trans people are dangerous. Now, what they'll use to back that up will be clips such as some clip of a trans person, say, committing sexual assault against a kid in a bathroom. They'll use a clip here, a clip there, and at the end of the day, you might start to think to yourself, this sounds sort of familiar. In fact, it seems like they're copying CNN. Remember when CNN did the same exact thing? Well, it actually is the same exact thing that CNN used to do with the Black Lives Matter movement, and that's actually how the Republican Party grew out of trusting uh, once used to be authority figures, such as the media, the doctors, CNN. They used to be trusted authority figures. Now, when Trump took office, CNN showed that they had no interest in actually being serious. They turned their serious broadcasting channel, their serious news channel, into a channel of clickbait. They turned it into a shitpost. They turned it into literally posting cancer at the fucking fastest rate they could, and at that point we sort of understood that we should stop taking them seriously. Now, of course, this had massively bad consequences. If you stop trusting one very trusted authority figure, the mob tends to go and disown every trusted figure. This could include the medical literature, the medical professionals. Uh, Once CNN, who was a trusted source, starts showing that actually they aren't professionals, you shouldn't listen to them. You always thought you should. Now you see you can't actually trust them. From there, a lot of things start to fall apart, and this is somewhat what the Daily Wire and platforms like Fox News are doing. They are doing the same thing, which is fearmongering. Now, what exactly are they fearmongering over? Well, they are fearmongering over trans people. Now, you might have seen this from CNN. CNN is racist, whereas Fox News is just transphobic. When CNN tried to push the narrative that all police officers were violent against black people because they could find a clip of a white police officer committing violence against black people. Now, this is, of course, very efficient, showing someone a clip of another person being killed has a way bigger impact any uh, than any statistic could ever have on you, because we empathize with people. But another trait that we have is that we tend to want the best. We tend to have good in our heart. So when you tell us that the entire trans community, or the entirety of the police, say, are out to get you, they're all pedophiles, they're all racists, uh, this is too huge of a group. It makes up too huge of a percentage of the population for it to be reasonable to assume, yeah, these people, does the trans community make up the same percentage of the population as, say, the KKK? Are they actually a fringe minority to that extent? When you look at it on bigger scales, if 1% of the population, say, were trans, those are probably thousands and thousands of people. It's just that sort of makes them a lot of people, actually. There are a lot more trans people than people say in the KKK. So when the Daily Wire is trying to use a clip, oh, well, we have a clip of sexual assault, and it happens to be in the right framing. This is a trans person committing sexual assault against a cis person. And thing is, you can find clips of anything happening anywhere because this is a pretty big country. Same thing with police brutality. Are some people racist? Sure. Are some police officers bad police officers? Are some of them brutal? Sure. Okay, but thing is, anecdotes might have more shock value on their face than any statistics, but they aren't representative of the actual overall population, and they aren't representative of reality as we actually live it, as well as statistics are. Statistics show the broader picture, and that is why when we want to make a claim about uh, when we want to make a claim based on generalizing a certain group, we have to show statistics, not individual clips, because anecdotes mean nothing. So, of course, when people show anecdotes to try to belittle an entire group, you should automatically assume that if this is the best evidence they have, firstly, you should assume that this is, otherwise they'd be showing you the best evidence they have instead of an anecdote. But the second thing you have to realize is this actually true? If they're showing us an anecdote instead of evidence, and the evidence is actually on their side, why aren't they showing the evidence? This is sort of like when people censor misinformation. You sort of have to ask yourself, well, if you're censoring it, does it really make sense to assume that it's full of garbage? If it's absolute clown shit, it's not like you'd be taking these people seriously. Well, in the same way here, it turns out that none of this is true. In fact, you can take any, this is how you get anecdotes, this is how you set up anecdotes to actually replace actual science. Because this is really a big country filled with a lot of good and bad people who do a lot of things. A lot of people commit rape, for instance, not just trans people, because in a country that has some rapists, it's rare. Some people are bad people, some people commit murder, some people commit rape, some people are even racist. That also happens. The fact that you can find such people, and in fact, if you look far enough, you could even find a lot of them, more than any amount you could ever hope to know personally. Uh, that doesn't really mean anything, because yeah, some people rape, some people are racist. Well, are white people more likely to be racist than black people? White police officers more likely to be brutal? Are trans people more likely to rape? And the answer to all of that is no. Police officers are Black police officers are twice as likely to commit police brutality against black people as opposed to white police officers. Trans people, you are way more likely to be sexually assaulted in a church as opposed to a drag queen event, which is supposedly where these communities are revolved around. So when people tell you, whether it be that trans people, that we should put our school, that we should put our kids out of public schools because trans people exist, or whether it be people trying to tell you that we should start the next race war because they now have ammunition for it with the death of George Floyd, proving that one police officer hates black people, and that therefore somehow all police officers hate black people. These things are no different. They are the same thing. The Daily Wire is just copying CNN, and these things, they are just meant to fearmonger. Try to make us just more divided, trying to do all of that. And in fact, you should also ask the question, what exactly are these people trying to say? And I have no idea why they aren't saying that, but it's very obvious. If you look at any of these clips, conservatives are showing videos of trans people, and most of the time when they're complaining about trans people, they're complaining about them being around children. Most of the time, this complaint will go in the form of, look, hey, there's this trans person, and there's they're teaching kids. Like almost every time, how conservatives will frame this trans debate, how they will approach it is that they'll show, hey, look, there's a class, there's a bunch of kids. What do you see wrong with this picture? I don't know, look at there in the middle. There's a trans person. She's the teacher. What does that mean? That means that the kids are getting groomed. And to that I would say, okay, well, like, I would disagree that trans people are groomers. I get where that whole thing might come from. Oh, they're a lady who dress weird. Okay, like, I don't know. Some people say that's a fetish for kids. Now, I don't know if anybody has that type of fetish to, like, if they have a fetish for kids, they would dress as the opposite gender. I haven't necessarily heard of that. If people say that's the case, I guess I could take them at their word. But thing is, you should start to take people at their word. If people, especially if they make up such a big portion of the population, are telling you that their sex is in fact separate from their gender, you should probably think back and realize, hey, and maybe they tell them the truth. Why else would they switch their gender? And these people have to actually try being consistent with their ideologies. It tends to come a lot from the right wing, the idea that puberty blockers and such things are irreversible, that the process of transitioning into the other sex is irreversible. Now, you have to wonder to yourself, it's sort of like the idea of being gay. Now, it may not intuitively make sense that someone is the opposite gender as their sex, because again, I can understand thinking of this on an intuitive standpoint. Like, I've always known this person. I've always known this person as a woman, and now they tell me that they're men, and I don't really recognize them in that. It's hard to wrap your head around it. But as hard as it may be to wrap your head around it, when you have genuine evidence, you should just accept that you were wrong. So, in this case, the evidence would be the same as, say, gay people. Well, why would it make sense for gay people to be gay? It's like, thing is, it's just that way. Like, there's no sense to look behind it. Why are some people born with one arm? It's not that it benefits them. Well, why are gay people gay? Like, they can't reproduce. The whole, like, if the human species wasn't a species that that prevailed on reproduction, no one would be attracted to anybody. So the whole idea that the whole concept of homosexuality existing would make no sense logically, but it just does because mental disorders such as gender dysphoria or homosexuality exist. They just do. And by the way, I'm not a homophobe for calling it a disorder. It absolutely is a disorder. It's something that is different in your mind than in how the average person's mind is wired to work. So, for example, if you're gifted, if you're super smart, if you're way out of the average in terms of intelligence, that could actually be a good thing, but it's still a mental disorder, by the way, just so we could get that out of the way. But uh, this thing with gay people, why aren't people going to say, oh, well, you know what, you're gay? Nah, I don't really believe you. Then you see them kiss a dude, and it's like, yeah, you know what, I'm not gay, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, if they're making out it, yeah, okay, I guess maybe they're gay after all. Well, if these people happen to be trans, I think the same logic. But why would you change your sex, especially if that's irreversible? Why would you do that? Doesn't really make any sense. But if you take these people at their word and assume that maybe your intuitions are wrong, you could actually get somewhere. Now, with all that said, the very big question that conservatives are absolutely saying without actually saying it outright is they have a problem with trans people being teachers in public schools. Now, I think it's pretty clear you can get straight to that conclusion, even if they aren't saying that specifically. I don't think it's a misrepresentation of what they're saying, and I don't think it's an unfair assumption to make that when conservatives show the trans segments that they show, they are in fact really saying we do not believe that trans people should have the right to teach at public schools. Now, taking that statement out of the segments they're posting, and assuming that a conservative is racist just because they push uh, some stuff like saying Tucker Carlson is racist for pushing the gray replacement theory or something. Those are two separate things. When Tucker Carlson is pushing the gray replacement theory, his version of the gray replacement theory isn't the one from Charlottesville, because Tucker Carlson's thing with the gray replacement theory, his version of it is absolutely just based on the events of 2021, Biden giving the Dreamers amnesty when Charlottesville had already happened when that had happened. So yeah, that's just you need to get your timelines right. Is Mexicans are black, uh, immigrants are black. Yeah, Tucker is referring to illegal immigration. So illegal immigration doesn't imply a race. So yeah, when like me saying, yeah, what conservatives are saying with their segment, with their transphobic statements, is trans people shouldn't have the right to be teachers. That's very different from saying, oh, Tucker Carlson's when he pushes the gray replacement theory, he's really trying to say that he doesn't want he doesn't want the Jews and the black people to replace the white people of America. Well, the difference is if you're going to make that claim about Tucker Carlson's gray replacement theory, you're going to have to firstly prove that all United States citizens are white. You're next going to have to prove that everybody who is from Mexico is not only black but also Jewish. If you do not have proof that all Europeans are black, you are by definition full of shit if you call Tucker Carlson a racist or white supremacist for pushing the gray replacement theory. Because if all illegal immigrants aren't of a certain race, if illegal immigrant is race neutral, that means that his argument is by definition nothing to do with race. You're just trying to put race into it. But this is very explicit here. Um, what's happening here is people saying, look at this picture, you see kids, you see a teacher, what's wrong with this picture? Yeah, the teacher's trans. And how they will justify this being wrong is that they will say, yeah, the teacher's trans, why is she trans? Why is she... Like, they will just say that trans people are men with fetishes for kids who just dress in the opposite sex. Yeah, I mean, who just dress up that way because, like, that's just them having a fetish. Well, okay, you can make that argument. I disagree with it, but if you're going to make that argument, you need to be clear in that argument. You need to be very straightforward. This is my argument. Like that, we can actually go forward from there. And my counter argument to that would be, well, according to pretty much all conservatives, the trans movement is really split into two parts. There are victims and there are predators. The main problem that conservatives claim to have with trans people is that they're indoctrinating kids into their lifestyle. Now, according to conservatives, the procedures for transitioning are permanent. They're reversible. If according to them, a lot of kids are being groomed into this lifestyle. A lot of kids are being deceived and being brainwashed into becoming trans, and that's actually the whole problem that most conservatives have with the trans movement. They believe that. Now, if you're going to assume that the trans movement is made up of either either predators, either pedophiles who are grooming kids, either kids who have been brainwashed and sexually exploited into um, into having these surgeries that will permanently make them trans. Well, by that logic, you'd have to agree that the trans community, by generalizing all of them, you are you are claiming that the trans community is made up of both victims of both people who were as children victims of sexual exploitation and those who exploited them. So if you're going to say that trans people shouldn't be allowed to teach in public schools, which is very clearly the message. I don't think it's a big stretch to go ahead and call it that. I don't think it's a big stretch to assume that's what they're saying. Well, from there, if you're going to say that all trans people, they shouldn't be allowed to teach in public schools, well, what do you say about a kid who was groomed into this lifestyle? You will have to explain whether or not you believe that if a kid had, if a kid was if someone was sexually exploited as a child and they were brainwashed into changing their body forever. If someone was sexually exploited as a child, um, and they have a dream to become a teacher, should these people should these people not be granted the right to like live the careers they want just because they were sexually exploited as children? Now, I think the answer to that would be no. But again, this whole thing with the transphobic movement, same thing with the racist movement from the left. It's all fear mongering, and we need to all look at it as what it is. Because what happens from there? Well, people look at the vaccine and they go like, yeah, well, I don't know if I really trust this. The what else has big government and big tech lied to us about? What else are these trusted sources lying to us about? And when they expect these sources to lie to them, they will find anything they can to justify this vaccine side effects. And what you end up with, people who are just way too skeptical of the vaccines, preferring to die to COVID deaths so that they might affect, so that they will avoid the side effects of the vaccines, most of which are actually more common from COVID than from the vaccines. And who's responsible for that? Well, CNN, the Daily Wire, who is pushing this ideology of, let's just take one anecdote of someone doing something. Oh yeah, I'm sure we can find at least one police officer who is white committing police brutality against someone who's black. I mean, it's a pretty big country. What do you expect? You'll find at least one, at least five. Once you're done filtering them out to fit our political agenda, you'll probably still have a lot. They won't be representative of the actual population, but if you're trying to start a race war, the facts are probably not going to be on your side anyway, so you're better off avoiding them. Same thing with transgender people. If your argument fundamentally is that we should stop trusting public schools because transgender people exist, facts are probably not gonna be very convincing if you try to use them in your favor. So, with that in mind, it would also make sense to try to say, oh, well, you see this trans person who raped this cis person? No, that is not an argument if you're going to claim that, oh, well, look at this trans person who raped this cis person. Well, how come sexual assault is way more common in churches than at drag queen events, these people's homes? Well, you're gonna have to explain that. I'm looking forward to seeing anyone who is willing to give it a try.